Hello. It is currently about 11 a.m. on Sunday, March 13th. Spider-Man No Way Home comes out Tuesday, March 15th on digital release. That's when it comes out, and I fully plan on buying it for the sake of owning it, basically. And I kind of had this idea, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to go through with it, where I was going to watch every Spider-Man film, every live-action Spider-Man film, leading up to No Way Home, getting ready for the release, and then I was going to watch. I've already seen it, but then I was going to watch it, and each consecutive one I was going to record my thoughts about that film. And I think that I'm gonna do that. I think that this is gonna be whatever next Dang Toys video is gonna go up on my channel. Fingers crossed, because I'm, very lazy with editing, and it's very likely that I'm gonna have the entirety of the footage recorded and then just not edit it for months, frankly. But yeah, I figured I'd take you guys along on this little journey with me, kind of get my thoughts as I immediately rewatch these films. I'm probably going to do this for the Batman also, which hits HBO Max sometime in April, something like that. I'll go back and rewatch all of the Batman films. But yeah, I got a stack of the movies ready to go. Yeah. Let's go. Let's do it. Okay, I just finished Spider-Man 1. This is about the point of this whole marathon thing where I realize exactly what I've gotten myself into. As I stated before, it's Sunday, No Way Home comes out Tuesday, and I've got other things to do throughout the day. So I'm really going to be cutting this thing close, so that's going to be fun. Wow. It took a while, but I love this movie. Spider-Man 1, not to spoil my general thoughts about the rest of the series, but this one's my favorite. I honestly, the first Raimi film is so well done. It's got some solid acting talent in it. Say what you want about Tobey Maguire while he's crying. I think he's a fantastic actor, and I think he does a great job of Spider-Man in general. His Spider-Man's a little bit stilted, but his Peter Parker is perfect, in my opinion. I just think he does such a good job. Kristen Dunst is really the main negative of these Raimi films, and, it's not like Harry Osborn. I can't even remember the actor's name. He's a complete scumbag, and fuck him. Even he does a good job in his character role. But then it's Willem Dafoe. It's Willem Dafoe who makes this movie for me. And I think he's just the best villain Spider-Man's ever had. Ever. It's just not even a competition for me. He's so fucking good. Oh my god. He's really good. The other thing about Spider-Man that I really enjoyed, this Spider-Man, this first Raimi film, that it took me until this viewing to really realize why I like these so much more than the MCU films. And that's because Raimi makes films from a point of view of someone who just loves to make films. Even with Spider-Man 3, not to spoil what I'm going to say about that movie, but even with Spider-Man 3, with its corporate interference, even with that, I still think that all of these films have so much less corporate interference than like your modern day MCU film, than even your Garfield films. It's just clearly from the point of view from someone who just loves what he's doing, who's just like, I fucking love making movies, and this is what I'm giving you. This is what I'm making. It's really well done. Frankly, if it wasn't for this one film, I don't even know if I'd be currently doing this whole marathon thing, I'd even be starting this. This was my first Spider-Man film. This was my introduction into Spider-Man. And, you know, Spider-Man is such an influential character to me. You know, he's definitely one of my favorite superheroes, even though, you know, maybe today I'd be more inclined to, like, read DC stuff than I would Marvel stuff. I'm still just such a big fan of Spider-Man, and this movie is really what did it for me. I mean, yeah, 2002, I was only about 7 years old, so, you know, I had watched, like, you know, Fox Kids and stuff like that, you know, the Batman Beyonds and the Batman the Animated Series, and those are still huge parts of my life, and I'll talk more about that when I eventually get to the doing the Batman rewatch. But this movie was like my first, wow, movies can be really good, you know? I think the only one that I really remember seeing in theaters before this one was, like, Godzilla 2000. And it's a Godzilla film, you know? It's goofy, people in suits blowing the shit out of each other. That's cool. I still really like Godzilla 2000. It's probably one of my favorite films of the Godzilla series. But this one was, like, my first... Yeah, comic books can be really cool. And people give the Raimi films and the beginning X-Men films and, you know, all these other Marvel films a lot of flack because they're campy. I think making a comic book movie that isn't a little campy is a detriment. I think that you're shooting yourself in the foot from that point. You know, Batman 89 is super campy. Batman 66 is the definition of campy. But those are fun films. You know, we're still basing this movie off of a character who premiered in a comic book, who fights costume supervillains and is this idealized version of good and bad, and, you know, there's no gray in the world and everything. You know, so, like, yeah, there's gonna be a little bit of camp, but that's good. That's conducive to the story, you know? That's fun. And I like fun things. I like fun movies. If you give me something that's a little bit campy, but it's still fucking fun, I'm still gonna like it, you know? I don't want to rant. I don't want every one of these to be a rant, but I feel like every one of them is gonna be a rant. I love Spider-Man 1. And because I have so many to watch, because I've got only like 72 hours to fucking do it, I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna start up Spider-Man 2. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, so Spider-Man 2's also a really, really good film. You know, I think even though Spider-Man 1 is still my favorite, I have to give props to Spider-Man 2 in saying that I really think that it's the best of the series from the filmmaking standpoints, from the writing standpoints. I think it was super brave to try and tackle the Spider-Man No More storyline. And they did a fantastic job with it, and mixing that into, you know, because he's got organic webs in the movies, and in the comics he doesn't, so it's like, but I feel like his lack of being able to shoot webs is more visually stimulating than what they did in the comics, which was just he was losing his powers. But, you know, it's like, this is like a more, it's easier for the audience to understand, and at the end of the day, that's a smart thing to do. Not only do I think this one is almost objectively better than the first one. Again, I still prefer the first one, but do I think that Spider-Man 2 is better than the first one? I think this movie is Sam Raimi at his best. I really do. He does such a good job of capturing the difficulties of juggling being Spider-Man and an actual real person, and, you know, trying to hold down a job and suffering, and, you know, you've got all these people caring about you that you keep letting down. I think that was really well done. Again, about the, I can't remember. It's been a couple hours, clearly, because these movies are so freaking long. I can't remember if I already talked about how I feel like the MCU movies have a sort of like corporate humor. Um, every movie, I think, can benefit from the addition of humor, but it really feels like a lot of MCU films are like, oh, this is a crutch. You know, this is something that we rely on, and we can pass off entire plot points as humor and then get away with it. That's a little iffy for me. But Spider-Man 2 doesn't do that. None of the Raimi Spider-Man films do that. They are genuinely funny. They have hilarious lines. Pizza Time, the elevator scene where he can't shoot webs and he has to take an elevator down. That scene's hilarious. The one where he asks for an advance from J. Jonah Jameson, and he laughs, and then he goes, "You serious?" Like it's fun. It's so fun. And again, that's where the camp comes in. I don't feel like you can have these super grim, dark movies and then somebody cracking jokes every 5 seconds. And I feel like that's what the MCU is trying to toe that line, and it's weird. And the world feels real. You know, it feels like these are actual people we're watching interact with each other. The scene when Otto is about to give the demonstration about the energy shit, whatever he does, he cracks some horrible joke. The joke's not funny. What's funny is that he chose to make the joke in general. The $20 bills. He says something. We found a roll of 20s wrapped up in a rubber band. Well, we found the rubber band. It's just some unfunny joke that you tell to your rich investor friends, and they chuckle, and it's an icebreaker. I like that little element of world building. And speaking of world building, the Raimi Spider-Man films, in my opinion, they tackle best the interaction between Spider-Man and the rest of New York City. They talk about what Spider-Man means to them. You get swept up in the hype when Spider-Man swoops in, and you're not up in the air. You're not following him. You're down on the ground. You're following the people watching him, and they're saying, shit like "Go Spidey, go!" and "You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us." These are campy scenes. These are cheesy scenes that are hammed up a little bit, but it appeals to that nature in you, where you can feel pride in something that you're a part of. You can feel pride in the fact that I'm in New York City and there's this guy swinging around who's looking out for me, who's standing up for the little guy. And that's, in New York where freaking everybody's the little guy. It's nice. Again, I do think that this is Sam Raimi's best. I love the Evil Dead series, and I do love Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2 is really good. The surgery scene in this film is straight out of Evil Dead. It's horror. It's still a little cheesy and funny, but it's still terrifying. And I think that's what Raimi does best, is he toes that line expertly between making a scene scary and making it funny, because those are really close, I think. And he does a really good job of it. I love this movie. This movie's really good. I'm gonna move on to Spider-Man 3. Yeah, I got so many movies to watch. I'm already losing my mind, but that's okay. Who needs a mind? Okay, slightly a controversial take here. I'm kind of into Spider-Man 3. Compared to the other two, it's bad. Unfortunately, that's just really the truth of it. The other two Raimi films, I should clarify, because I am watching all of the Spider-Man films. But, I do think that there's a good movie underneath this final product. Looking at it as a whole, I think it has a lot of faults. I think it has a lot of issues, but 2/3 of this movie is legitimately good. Up until he really starts to be emo Parker, I still think the movie's great. I think it's fun. I think it's lighthearted. I think that it's a perfect fit with the rest of the series that Raimi had been doing before. I think it's a great send up to 60s, 70s golden age era of Spider-Man comics. That was always Raimi's best. And then Avi Arad, I think is his name, tried to force in Venom. And even the New Goblin, I think his design was awful. I think the storyline was fine. But having to rely on, God, I looked up his name, and James Franco. Having to rely on James Franco for that role was really unfortunate, and that shot everyone in the foot creatively. But Sandman was really well done. The scene in the collider, the science machine that I don't even know what they were trying to do, but it doesn't matter. I thought that scene was beautiful. Yeah, and then Venom. Venom just really sucked the life out of this film because, Raimi didn't know how to do Venom. That wasn't his era of Spider-Man comics. I think it was okay, but no, I don't think it was okay. I think it was bad. I think he did a bad job. But even when Sam Raimi is doing a bad job, I still think he puts out quality. I still think that he makes something that's at least fun. The third act is awful, but the fight scene between Spider-Man, Sandman, Venom, and New Goblin is fun. That's something that I don't think we ever saw in the comics, was Harry and Peter, teaming up, putting aside their differences and working together. I don't think that's ever something that we ever saw in the comics. I feel like at some point it just became, oh, Harry's now a bad guy and he's always going to be a bad guy. Which I liked that this movie said, no, he's going to come back from the brink, from the edge, from the cliff. He's actually going to finish things off on a high note, and I did like that. The amnesia trope was lazy. Amnesia is always a lazy writing plot point, but it wasn't offensive. But Tobey Maguire was way too dorky for emo Peter Parker. For the jazzy, snappy, dig on this. He's too much of a dork. I don't think it worked for him. I don't think it worked for the character that he was portraying. The rest of this film, it didn't work. It didn't work for me. And at this stage, the public perception of Spider-Man, it starts to get a little hammy. It starts to get a little disingenuous, and then what was a bonus for me in the first two films was starting to get grating. It was starting to feel disingenuous. It felt more like corporate intervention, that, oh, we had people cheering for Spider-Man in the last two, we gotta have them cheering for him in this one too. It really started to work into that, oh, Sony has their grubby little mitts all over this one, and that was upsetting. That was upsetting. I even had an issue, for starters, this is the movie that I decided to fiddle with my TV settings for, because at some point I just got that bored where I was like, maybe I need to work on the noise reduction or the motion, whatever. But in addition, I had an issue in the last act of the film when Harry shows up to help Spider-Man out. The audio starts fucking up. I don't even know what it was. It just starts skipping all over itself, and I couldn't hear anything. Because I just got the new 4K edition Sam Raimi trilogy, but it's Spider-Man 3, and even though I still think physical media is better than digital, because you don't have to worry about buffering, you don't have to worry about compression, blah blah blah. It's like, hey, this is the full thing, read it off of your disc. Even though I think that it's better, I'm not gonna bother with replacing fucking Spider-Man 3 when the 2/3 of the film that I like are perfectly fine. No, I'm good. I'm fine. But I pulled it up on, I think I had it on Amazon. I don't remember where, but I pulled it up and I finished the movie, and you know, I still like that ending fight scene, even if it's stupid. It's stupid and awful. But the scene in that fight scene when Peter finally figures out that the sound is what damages the symbiote, and he's running around him and throwing the poles, the metal poles, into the concrete. That's still a cool scene. Even when it's bad, it's still fun, you know, and that's what I like about Sam Raimi. Even when he does something poor, it's still fun. And I don't even think he's ever really done anything poor. I blame the studio for this one, for the quality of this film. It's got the best Bruce Campbell cameo out of all of them, so that's something to write home about. But yeah, overall thoughts on the entirety of the Raimi trilogy were quality. Overall quality. I'm not gonna fault an entire trilogy over the last act of the last film. You know, that's still 8 out of 9? No. That's still 8/9 of a quality film. Of a quality film trilogy. I liked it. I love it. Yeah. I guess I have to move on to the Andrew Garfield movies next, so that's gonna be fun. So Amazing Spider-Man is definitely a film. I have nicer things to say about it than that. But I think its biggest detriment is the fact that it comes right after the Raimi films. Not only that, it also... Not only that, it's also like, as I'm marathoning these, and I've spent so many hours watching the Raimi films, I feel like my brain is dead, so that's definitely going to impact, you know, the quality of my retrospective abilities, and I don't even know if I'm done today yet, but regardless, I think it's okay. It's not awful. It's not as bad as a lot of people gave it flack for when it came out. Even me. It definitely has its own set of issues, and it definitely feels more corporatized, more producer influenced than director influenced, and in general, I don't even like the director that much. I think Mark Webb is fine, but I don't think he's anything revolutionary. Which you're coming right after Sam Raimi. I legitimately believe Sam Raimi is one of the greatest directors of all time. So it's hit or miss for me, and mostly miss. I think the casting's really well done. I think Garfield is well casted, especially in the role of Spider-Man. I think that he plays a great Spider-Man. He's quippy, he's funny, he's quirky. He's a quirked up white boy. He's good. I think that he's good. I think Martin Sheen and Sally Field play great Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Mainly Martin Sheen. I think Martin Sheen's a good actor in general. But I think that he does a good job of Uncle Ben. Peter isn't so nerdy in this one. They more focus on the photographer aspects of his rather than the science nerd. I think that that's fine. I think that's whatever. It's still a bit too skater punk for my tastes, but it's not bad. It's not awful. I gave it a lot more flack when it initially came out, probably mainly because they throw a skate montage in the middle of the film, and it's weird and it's super out of place. I feel like this one, and subsequently the next one, I feel like they focus too much on doing a love story first, which that's fine. That's understandable, and that's probably why they hired Mark Webb to direct this one. Because he directed 500 Days of Summer, and it's a quirky indie love flick, so they were like, oh, we want those vibes for Spider-Man, so we're gonna do that. But it feels weird. It feels weird to me, and I know it's awkward teenage love, so it's, at some level, it's supposed to feel awkward, but that doesn't cut it for me, from my perspective. It's not bad. I think the lizard actor did a good job. I liked Dennis Leary as Captain Stacy. I give it more of a pass these days than I did when I initially saw it. Can't say the same about the next movie. Afraid of it, dead to me, lied to me, shadow me, he hates on me, he's using me, he's dead to me, and Spider-Man, he is Spider-Man. It is currently 2 a.m., almost exactly. I have watched 5 Spider-Man films today. 5 of them. All the Raimi films, and then all of the, I guess technically Mark Webb. I was going to say Andrew Garfield because I associate those films with Andrew Garfield, because I'm trying to associate them with the best part of those films. Andrew Garfield is the best part of the Mark Webb films. I think he's wasted on these. He's a fantastic actor, and he does a really good job of playing Spider-Man. I said that in the last part. I didn't mention Emma Stone. I think Emma Stone is fantastic too, and she has great on. It's late. She has great on-screen chemistry with Garfield, and they were dating at the time, and that's just a cute little puff piece to throw in when you're writing about the movie, so I'm sure the media loved that. But I think the part where it starts to suck is the writing. I have in my notes, because I take notes through all of these, that it's a love story first, and then that is grating, and I think I'm mistaken on that note. It is a love story first, but that's not the part that makes it grating. I think the part that makes it grating is that this is not a good film. I don't know if I should blame Mark Webb. I don't know if I should blame Sony for digging their little fingers into it and making sure it's this super clean, no risk, just super washed out, boring film that sucks. It's so bad. I really, this is probably because, again, it is 2 a.m. and I've watched 5 Spider-Man films today, but I really don't like it, which sucks because there are really good parts about this film. There are really, really fun aspects about it. I think all of the fight scenes are really fun. I think the CG is really, really well done. Honestly, I think the CG tops most of the MCU films. I think that it's stellarly done. a lot of those scenes within the fight sequences, I guess, in the fight scenes are cool. The Electro scene in Times Square, when it's the spider sense and he slows down and it's going between his broken web shooter and then his working one, and he sees the people, they're about to grab the railing, so he's like processing. That's a really well done scene. I really like that scene. The scene at the end where, spoilers for a 10-year-old film at this point, no, but it's close. It's 8. I think it's 8. I think it's an 8-year-old film. Regardless, when Gwen Stacy dies, I think that's a sad scene. I like the imagery of, even though it's super cheesy and hammed up, the web shooting out and it's like a little hand reaching to grasp her. That's that's a sad scene. That's depressing, and watching Gwen Stacy die in general is really sad. I like at the end of the film when he comes back, when he's Spider-Man again, and he's gearing up and it's slow motion and he's getting ready to fight the Rhino, and he's swinging a not Subway grate. It's 2 a.m. Manhole cover at him. I think that's a great scene. Electro could be better. I don't put any blame on Jamie Foxx because Jamie Foxx did a good Electro. Spoilers for No Way Home. I think he did a good job in that film. This one just had a really weird script. I like the antisocial aspect of it. Not necessarily antisocial, but kind of an outcast, shoved outside of society. I do think that that's a good angle. I don't think the implementation was very well done. I liked the genetic disease for Osborn in place of trying to just do a super soldier thing. I still like the super soldier thing. I love that was like a little... Excuse me. I loved that was a little connection between the Raimi Spider-Man films and the greater Marvel universe. Like, why would they be making a super soldier serum? Because Captain America exists. But it's never outright said, obviously, because they didn't have the rights. But it was, yeah. I liked that aspect in the Raimi films, but I'm done talking about those. I also liked it in this one where it's a genetic disease and Harry has to fight the clock to get it, whatever. I still didn't really like Harry. The pop montages, I know it was Imagine Dragons, I think, in the first film, and maybe it was even Imagine Dragons in this film. I don't know. I'm not into it, and it really dates the film for me. I mean, the Raimi films also had, like, the end credits have, certain songs playing, and then there are a few montages in there, but they weren't as... I just don't like this film, and I'm looking for reasons to say that I don't like it more. The spy parents, his dad has a fucking railway car that comes out of the ground underneath a subway station somehow. That was stupid. That was so stupid. And then at least she doesn't come back to Peter at the end in the theatrical cut. That's like a deleted sequence. I actually would have liked to see that play out because I feel like they'd be going for the Clone Saga, the same way that the Ultimate Universe did it. In the Ultimate Universe, Peter's dad does come back, but he's a clone. And then he melts before his eyes, and that's a cool scene, but it's fucked. I don't think that this movie series would have done the Ultimate Clone Saga with the same quality that the Ultimate Clone Saga did, but again, I would have liked to see that the same way that, I want to see Darkseid invade Earth, but I have no confidence that Zack Snyder would do a good job of that. I'm getting off into a tangent. I don't like this movie. Again, that could totally be because I'm watching it I just finished it at 2 a.m. and I've watched 5 other Spider-Man films and my brain is melting behind my eyes. But I think it's legitimately just, I don't like this movie a lot. A lot of the writing is weird. The characters, a lot of their motivations don't make sense. The best part of this movie is Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, but they can't carry a Sony flick to save their lives, unfortunately. Go watch Tick Tick Boom and La La Land. I liked Emma Stone in Easy A, too. She's a good actress. Oh, and she's in Birdman, too. Birdman's a great film. So yeah, I don't like this movie. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm not gonna stay up, but next time you see me, I will have watched Captain America Civil War, because I'm doing all of the live action appearances, not just his solo films, which I'm gonna regret, because that means I'm gonna watch Civil... you'll see. So Civil War, I watched this one because it's the introduction of Spider-Man in the MCU. So I kind of felt like I had to like complete the illusion, you know? Like, it wouldn't be the same if I just watched all of Spider-Man's MCU films without anything else on the outside, because, you know, they always deal with, like, oh, well, he's sad because Infinity War and Endgame and whatever. And at the beginning of Homecoming, he's like, you know, oh, I'm dealing with, like, oh, Tony Stark doesn't want to talk to me anymore. Well, how did he meet Tony Stark? You know, this movie sets that up, so I figured I'd watch Civil War. And, you know, honestly, I think it's been a while since I've seen an MCU film, because I do think Civil War is one of the better ones, but holy shit, some of the script is just really obnoxious. Just things that don't make sense, and I think the Russo brothers are probably some of the best directors to work with the MCU. I think Taika Waititi did a fantastic job with Thor Ragnarok, but it's been a while since I've watched it, so I'll probably have to go back and reassess. But the Russos do a good job, especially making the Captain America films feel like that like spy thriller, you know, like Jason Bourne-esque type film with Captain America. And that's well done. But this has got some weird lines in general. When Black Widow tasers Crossbones in the neck, he says, "I don't work like that no more." What the fuck does that mean? You don't get affected by electricity anymore? I don't understand what you're talking about. And then Captain America unmasks him, and he goes, "I think I look good, all things considered," when his face looks like... when he looks like a burn victim. I don't know. Why is this things that people are saying? And then I stopped writing them down, because they're like every 2 minutes. It feels like there's always a quippy line that needs to be thrown out. And it doesn't fit a lot of these characters. It doesn't fit how serious I'm supposed to be taking them. How I'm supposed to be, treating this whole situation. I don't know. I got problems. I got problems with the MCU, I guess. And then Tom comes in. Tom Holland. I think Tom Holland is a good casting for Spider-Man. I think he's really, really well casted. And this, as his first outing, it feels good. I like that they're not treading water with his origin story. I like that they're not, oh, let's redo Uncle Ben. Let's redo how he gets bit, blah, blah, blah. They're just like, he's Spider-Man. He is Spider-Man. Maybe he's in the in-between when he's... when he's still using the wrestling outfit or whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of what they set up for this film, and I think that that's smart. I think, we don't need to see, how we don't need to see Uncle Ben die for the third time. We don't need to hear all these origin story shit. We know the Spider-Man origin story. You can skip to the middle at this point with Spider-Man. I think when the Raimi film came out, a lot of people needed to see that origin. They needed to see it, but with the MCU at this stage, when we've had it twice already, you're good. You don't need to redo anything. I'm fine. There's another line in the airport sequence, and In general, I remember really liking the airport sequence, but upon this viewing, I don't know some more. And it's it's very clearly set up to be like, oh, this is the one that we're gonna advertise. This is the sequence we're gonna include in all the trailers, and it makes sense because this is when everybody's fighting. This is the only Civil War part of Civil War. You know, when you're making a movie based off of, you know, that comic book, you gotta have the fight sequence between all the superheroes. That's what people came to the theater to see. But it just feels very very not overlooked, somebody was watching over this whole sequence, from writing to filming to everything. Very clearly there was an exec hovering over the Russo brothers' shoulder this entire time. The scene where they all line up is just stupid in context, but they still do it. And everybody's still throwing out quips every 5 seconds. And there's this part where Spider-Man is fighting Falcon, Sam Wilson, and Sam says to him, because Spider-Man is being Spider-Man and talking a lot, Sam says, I don't know if you've ever been in a fight, but there's usually not this much talking. Which, that's a really good line to say to Spider-Man. Just purely based on a writing standpoint of this portion alone, that's a really good thing to say to Spider-Man. But it doesn't work in the context of the MCU films, because everyone is talking while they fight all the fucking time. I don't understand who thought that this would work, because it's not true. It's not true at all. And then 2 seconds later, you've got not Wanda. You've got Black Widow and Clint fighting, and they're like, we're still friends, right? Depends on how hard you hit me. This doesn't work in the context of the film that you have inserted this genius line into. So that I don't know, that messed with me, and that made me laugh. Wow. Civil War is a movie, and that's a fact. And I mean, Marvel movies have always been events, but I don't know at what stage I convinced myself that this one was less of an event, but it's an event, and it's really obnoxious upon this viewing, unfortunately. But at least it's over. So now I can continue on to Homecoming. Yeah, Homecoming. We'll see how I like it this time.
Let's go. The moment is done. You're going through a time.
Homecoming's good. I think that this was a beautiful first solo film for Spider-Man in the MCU. I think it was really well done. I think it really needed to be low to the ground, and it's kind of showing like the street level stuff that Spider-Man's dealing with, while the MCU up until this point has been huge, groundbreaking shit. It's fun. Yeah, I think it was really needed in the MCU, and I think it's free of a lot of MCU trappings. Yeah, you know, people are funny, but it's like it's a lot more situational comedy than quips. Than, you know, people throwing out one-liners all the time at each other while beating the crap out of each other, which is, I think that's well done. Keaton's good in this. I love Keaton. This commentary that he has, where he's saying, you know, rich people don't care about the poor guy. They send us to their wars and whatever, and then they throw us in the garbage and blah blah blah. That's a beautiful point to make. And then they follow it up by having him try to murder a teenager, and using that as justification to make alien guns and sell them to criminals. So, I mean, that in general, that's just Hollywood's thing about, you know, oh yeah, we can have them have cool takes, but then we have to immediately follow it up with with violence against innocent people, so that you don't think to go down that. I'm not gonna get up on a soapbox, but it's stupid. The intro recap where he's filming himself on his way to the fight in Germany, in Berlin, I think, in Civil War. That's fun. I like seeing that kind of thing from his perspective, and I think that was a great introduction to the movie. The montages in this one are better than, in my opinion, the Amazing Spider-Man ones, because they're already using timeless music. You know, it's not like, oh, we're going to use this pop song that's popular now and hope that it becomes timeless. No. They're using music that is already timeless. They're using, you know, a lot of, you know, punk from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. Blitzkrieg Bop is probably the biggest one that's featured heavily in this film, and Blitzkrieg Bop is a great song, so I think that the montages work really well. The high school aspects of this movie make sense. It's a lot of, yeah, this is what high schoolers actually talk like, you know, and they don't all look 30 years old like they did in Amazing Spider-Man. So that was fun. And especially in the Raimi films, the high school scenes of that were like, are we in high school, or are we watching a bunch of adults cosplaying? I love the interrogation scene with Donald Glover. I think that scene's hilarious. I like that Donald Glover is in this film. I wish that he would come back and do Prowler stuff. But, you know, we'll see. This one does a decent job of showing, you know, Spider-Man and your average everyday person that Far From Home definitely misses on, but I'll talk about that. Oh god, I've got so many movies to watch in the between time. You know, it's showing how he interacts with the neighborhood, how he's just swooping around Queens doing his best part. Donald Glover brings up something that, you know, he says when they meet each other earlier in the film at the gun trade. He says something, hey, if you're gonna shoot at somebody, shoot at me, and that resonates with his character, and I think that's a very good representation of Spider-Man. You know, he's this little kid who doesn't want to kill nobody, and he just wants everybody to be happy, but of course, you know, he's idealistic. This movie got a lot of flack for being Iron Boy or something, that it was basically just Iron Man 4. That one doesn't really hit for me, because this was the first movie. Civil War technically was the first movie, but this was the first solo Spider-Man movie where we see him interacting with other superheroes, you know, where we see him as part of this grander universe that everybody had been reading in the comics for years. This was the first time we actually got to see this in live action. So I don't mind the heavy emphasis on Iron Man. I don't mind, you know, the heavy emphasis on he is small, he is weak, he is tiny, he's low level, and Iron Man's, you know, up here. That makes sense to me, and I'm fine with that. That's definitely not the case for Far From Home, but again, you know, we'll talk about that later. Yeah, I liked this one. I think this is one of the better Spider-Man films. I think this was a great beginning to his solo MCU adventures, and yeah, I think Tom Holland does a good job, and so does the rest of the cast. Marvel fatigue is real, and I currently have it. Infinity War is kind of just a drag on a second viewing. I think it was great in the theater, when you're there, when you experience it, when you're there as like an event. But subsequent viewings are kind of a drag. They're kind of a drag. It's just such a bloated movie, and there's so many characters, and I really shouldn't have even included it for Spider-Man Marathon, because Spider-Man's barely in it. It only has like a few lines. The magic line is funny, I guess, when they're fighting Thanos, and he keeps popping out of Doctor Strange's portals, and he goes, magic, more magic, magic with a kick, magic with a whatever, and then he gets choked out. I think that line was funny. But this isn't really a Spider-Man film, so I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know why I spent 3-4 hours watching it. I don't even know why I'm gonna about. I have no idea why I'm about to watch Endgame either, but I am. Oh boy. I don't know, Marvel fatigue is just really setting in for me. This one wasn't too quippy like Civil War, which was good, but there were still quips, and it was still obnoxious, in the final battle when they're talking about, oh, you copied my beard, oh, this is my friend Groot, oh, how much for the arm? I'm not into needless humor where it's not needed. And then Thor says something about Rocket asks him, "You speak Groot?" And Thor says it was an elective on Asgard. That's the stupidest fucking line I've heard in any movie that I've been watching this entire marathon thing. Any of these Spider-Man films, that's the worst line in any of them, and it's not even technically a Spider-Man film. That might be the worst line I think I've ever heard, just because of how awful I feel about it. I have no emotional energy after watching 8 films now. 8 films for Spider-Man time. And I've still got 2 more before No Way Home. So I've got like 11 total, something like that. Maybe 12. I don't math very well. But it's awful. And yeah. It's going to be nighttime by the time I finish Endgame, so that'll be cool. This one's so short because I'm upset by Infinity War. Fuck it. I really have very little to say about Endgame that I didn't already say about Infinity War, that I didn't already say about Civil War. They kind of all blend together in the same levels of monotony. They're great as event films. When you're there in the theater, when you're with your friends, when you've caught up, when you've experienced the whole phase 4, phase 3, whatever phase that you're on, it's fun. It's fun to be there. It's fun to experience it for the first time. Every subsequent time afterwards for me has been even more boring, even more monotonous. I'll say, I don't know if I'm just going crazy, but I feel like Endgame was at least a little bit more engaging than Infinity War. Maybe I'm just losing brain cells the longer that I let this go on. I don't know. But yeah. Wow. I don't know why I expect so much of the film series that caters to people who have Funko Pop stacked to the ceiling and make the soy face all day. I'm giving them too much credit, more credit than they deserve. But I don't know. I don't know. I got one more before No Way Home, and then I'm done with this. Thankfully, I'm still gonna try to do this for Batman. I don't know why after all of this. But I'll definitely stretch that out more. But I'm making a commitment to myself to watch better movies between now and then. Just good quality cinema. I don't need any more popcorn flicks. I don't need any more MCU films. I guess I'll watch Moon Knight, but honestly, at this stage, I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna watch Moon Knight because I'm really upset by Marvel right now, and this was a big mistake, especially right after the Batman. I should stop talking. I like Far From Home. Most of it. It definitely feels, I don't know, a little weird. It kind of feels like it's got the same exact bones as Homecoming with a new coat of paint, if that makes sense. It's not bad. It's really quite enjoyable, and the Mysterio scenes are really well done, and I think that they're the best part of the film. Where it drags for me is it's kind of like Spider-Man on Vacation. I don't know how that storyline fits for me personally. But it's good. You know, it's a fun film. I enjoy it. Unfortunately, I still think it's the weakest of the MCU films. Spoilers for how I feel about No Way Home. But I think it's better than most of Spider-Man's other outings in the MCU. So, you know, there's that. But yeah, it's fun. It's just a fun film. And you know, it's a build-up to No Way Home. And it's not like you can have No Way Home without Far From Home. You know, you've got to start there. And I think it's a fine start. It's late and my brain is mush. My brain is mush in general because I've been watching, 10 Spider-Man films at this point. 5 a day. It's awful. But I've only got one left. Thank God. I do. This is all helping me contextualize how I feel about Spider-Man in live action. I'll save that. I'll save my thoughts on that for after I watch No Way Home, when I'm done, when I'm wrapping it up. But this movie was good. I enjoyed it personally. This viewing, this marathon session, more than Infinity War and Endgame, which honestly were such a slog to get through for me. So, you know, in that regard, comparatively to the last two films that I watched, it was fun and it was enjoyable. And this one is definitely where the Iron Boy issue starts to get to me. You know, it's like, okay, can we just have a movie that's just about Spider-Man for once? Thankfully, that's the very next one. But yeah. It's, yeah, I can't say, I can't keep saying, oh, I like it. Oh, you know, I can't keep saying that because it's equivalent to nothing. Whatever. It's a fine movie. I'm going to go into the last one now. No Way Home time. No Way Home kind of sucks. I'm joking. No. No Way Home is a very good film. A very good Spider-Man film, specifically, is what I want to say. Because, so on the first viewing, I was enamored by it. I loved it. I loved every second. You know, it really hit all the high notes that I was expecting to see. And that was good. That was good for me, for a fan, to see everything that No Way Home does properly. By the way, I'm totally going to spoil some things in No Way Home. So even though the whole media ban thing is over, if you haven't seen it, I would not watch this portion of the video. On my second viewing, it got a little hammy. It seemed a little too fan servicey for me. Again, it's a really good Spider-Man film. From the action to from the action to the CGI to character portrayals of Spider-Men, the other Spider-Men too, especially. I think all of it was great, and I loved seeing Green Goblin come back. My favorite portrayal of Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe, and he did a fantastic job. And Tobey did a fantastic job. And Andrew Garfield did a fantastic job. And Tom Holland did a fantastic job. Everybody did fantastic jobs. Alfred Molina was great. Jamie Foxx surprised me with how good his Electro was. But, you know, some of the Scooby-Doo this shit, that was kind of a stupid line. You can't tell me it wasn't kind of a stupid line. You know, it's just, a few things just hit my ear wrong in that movie, and it was enough to you know, knock it down a couple pegs for me. I don't know. Again, it's not a bad film. I just don't... In doing this marathon, I'm comparing all the Spider-Man films to each other. And even just within the MCU, I feel like Homecoming is a more complete film. Obviously, you need No Way Home. Like, to have No Way Home, you have to have all the other Spider-Man films. That's kind of Marvel's bread and butter in the MCU. You know, Infinity War doesn't matter if you haven't seen everything else. Endgame doesn't matter if you haven't seen everything else. You know, even the Avengers, all the way back in, 2012? Even the Avengers doesn't matter if you haven't seen all of the others. That's like the appeal. You know, you go to the theaters, you see all these other heroes, and then you see them team up. And that's like the good part of the MCU. But fuck Joss Whedon. Has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I just want to throw out a fuck Joss Whedon. Thank you. Scumbag piece of shit, dirtbag. But no, so that's why No Way Home is cool. Because it's kind of Spider-Man's own Avengers. You know, this is his Avengers movie. And it's good in that regard. If I'm directly comparing it to the first, the second, and Civil War, I think that No Way Home is better than all of those. You know, those mashup films, those ones that are like, hey, this is the culmination of you as the fan viewing all this shit. Here you go, here's your payoff. Directly comparing those two together, No Way Home. Easily. But standing on its own merits as a film, which is how I watched it this time, which is how I've been watching all of these films, it was a little lacking compared to Homecoming. And I think I'm a fan of Homecoming more. Spoilers for the list that I'm going to give at the end of this. But it was still a fun time. And that, you know, I don't want to negate how fun of a movie it is. You know, I have this... Fun matters in cinema. And that's what a lot of people miss, you know? And I, as much as I do think camp is the most important part of superhero films, and I'm not going to apologize for that, you know, I think sometimes it's a little iffy. In regards to how a film stands on its own. So the camp in this film kind of feels weird because they're still trying to... As much as I think camp is good, I don't know if this one hit the proper camp for me, personally. Because so, for me with superhero films... Where camp collides with the rest of the film is when they're still trying to do, you know, these like, oh, yeah, this is totally something that would exist in real life. This is totally, you know, I don't need that. Okay, I understand I'm watching a comic book film. I understand I'm watching things that will never happen. And they try to explain things like, oh, this is how he does this, and this is how he does this, and this is how he does this. I don't need to see every intricate detail of how Iron Man builds his armor, okay? I don't need to see all the wiring on the inside of Spider-Man's suit that is how he does all this shit. Don't show me that. Give me a suit and just say it does that. Does that make sense? I hope I'm not sounding like a crazy person. So for me with the MCU, where it conflicts, even when they do camp, it still feels like a bastardized camp. I'm definitely sounding like an insane person right now, and that's okay. So for me with MCU stuff is when Spider-Man flips his suit inside out and suddenly that's a new suit. Or when Doc Ock touches his tentacle to Peter's chest and, oh, now it's an integrated suit. That's like the kind of corporate interference that's just there for marketing purposes that kind of conflicts with camp for me. The Raimi films never have that. I know I mention the Raimi films a lot, but that's just how it is. But I don't want to complain about No Way Home. I genuinely enjoy it. I genuinely enjoy this film. It's extremely fun, and in my opinion, fun is the most important factor. I can forgive a lot of things in the name of fun, but it only goes so far. And I'll leave it there. It's a good movie. I guess for my ranking of all the Spider-Man films, in order of what I think is best to worst, I'm gonna say, and this is a general, all over best, not like, oh, this is the best CGI, and this is the best writing, and this is blah, blah, blah. No. I'm gonna judge these on what I feel is the best film. Not the best Spider-Man film, not the best, the best. Taking that into mind, I'm going to do this from worst to best. So I think the worst Spider-Man film of all time, I think it's Amazing Spider-Man 2. And that one, it really just had some weird writing for me. It was a love story first that they tried to cram a Spider-Man story into, and his parents are spies, I guess, now, and they're corporate espionage. I didn't like that plot line. I didn't like that movie. Even though that one is the best CGI, I didn't like it. I did not like it. Again, the fight scenes are cool. Fight scenes are really cool. But that's not enough for me for a good Spider-Man film. That's not enough for me for a good film, because I'm just judging this based on their own film merits. And even though that has a lot of fun, it doesn't carry it far enough to negate all of the other stuff. So Amazing Spider-Man 2 is on the bottom of the list. I think the next one I have to do is Civil War. And that's weird, because I used to love Civil War. I used to be like, oh, Civil War is one of the better MCU films. I adore this film. I think it's great. Now, not so much. Civil War is obnoxious. Why is everybody so quippy? Why? Why are we taking this Whedonism, that's what I'm calling it, this Whedonism, and throwing it at every character? Why is that something that we're copying? I don't like it. I don't like the Whedonisms. I don't like Civil War anymore. Honestly, unenjoyable film for me. And then you start to notice, like, the CGI is not that good, and it's hasn't been that good at MCU for a while, and I just feel like they feel like they can cheap out on CGI and just get away with it because everybody's gonna come see MCU regardless. I don't know. It's weird. I'm not a fan of Civil War. Not anymore. Amazing Spider-Man 2, Captain America Civil War. I think Amazing Spider-Man. This is where we start to get into the better films. I think Amazing Spider-Man is okay. I think it's okay. I rewatched it recently. Why did I say that? Of course I rewatched it. I had to rewatch it for this video. Whatever. I think Amazing Spider-Man is pretty decent. It's not Raimi 4. And I think that was what a lot of people were wanting out of it, and they didn't get it. But that's okay. And it's definitely the part where you start to see the little corporate fingers digging into Spider-Man. I don't know. But it's not awful. It's just not stellar. That's all I have to say about Amazing Spider-Man 4. So Amazing Spider-Man 2, Civil War, Amazing Spider-Man 1. I think Far From Home. I think that I think the movie has some great scenes. The Mysterio scenes, the one where he's getting tormented in Germany, I think, and then at the end where he's fighting all the drones on the little walkway, those scenes are stellar. Those are really good. Everything else is not enough to carry it for me. It's just kind of Spider-Man goes on vacation, and I don't think that's warranting of a movie. And it's a lot more of the we threw new suits in here just for shits and giggles. I guess Night Monkey was necessary because he brings up a good point. If he's seen as Spider-Man on the school trip, his classmates are going to put two and two together. But it's I don't know. This is a very thinly veiled criticism. But that's what you get on Dank Toys. It's a fine film, but it's not great. Amazing Spider-Man 2, Captain America Civil War, Amazing Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man Far From Home, Endgame. I think that Endgame, you know what, I'm going to spoil Endgame and then Infinity War. I think these movies are good when you have all the background information. When you've watched everything, when you've caught up to this point, it's fun, it's enjoyable, you are a part of something, and that is the main appeal of the MCU. But based on its own merits, a lot of the jokes don't land for me and are cheesy and are hammed up and aren't funny. The CGI is iffy in places. There are a few weird characterization choices where, later in the film, this character is supposed to be super serious, but earlier they're just cracking jokes like it's nothing. I'm not into that. But I think Endgame is a good send-off for Tony Stark. I think that's a great scene for him because, not even going to get into it. I just think it's a great send-off for Tony Stark. Infinity War, I think, is the better setup. I think it has the better set pieces, even though it's juggling so many characters. And it's definitely bloated. All of them are bloated. But it's good. I like it. Amazing Spider-Man 2, Captain America Civil War, Amazing Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man Far From Home, Endgame, Infinity War. This is where I put Spider-Man. Wow, I haven't done Spider-Man 3 yet. Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah. Okay, controversial take. Controversial take here. Spider-Man 3 is better than Avengers Infinity War. I am fully ready to have people yell at me in the comments for putting Spider-Man 3 above Infinity War. I will make a counter argument. Spider-Man 3 is still a film made by Sam Raimi. And Sam Raimi loves to make movies. And I'm going to stand by the fact that the first 2/3 of this film are legitimately good. Are legitimately fun, legitimately enjoyable, really well done fight choreography and everything. I think that the first 2/3 of this film live up to the legacy of Spider-Man 2. That live up to that. And then the third act ruins it all. And that's what brings it down. But I think that the third one's good. I legitimately do. At least 2/3 of it. Venom sucks. I'm not going to pretend that Venom doesn't suck. But Sandman is really well done. Harry Osborn, even though his suit kind of sucks, I like the dynamic between him and Peter fighting. But then in the third act, it all kind of crumbles when he's like needlessly evil and you're relying on James Franco to play a character who he has no right playing. I don't know. I still think the Spider-Man 3 is good. This isn't just me making an excuse for forgetting to put it lower on the list. No. I swear. I believe Spider-Man 3 is good. I think it's a good film. I think it's enjoyable for 2/3 of it, and then the third act is where it all falls apart. Amazing Spider-Man 2, Captain America Civil War, Amazing Spider-Man. Wow, what was next? Spider-Man Far From Home, Endgame, Infinity War, Spider-Man 3. This is where I'm gonna put No Way Home. I think No Way Home is good. I do. I mean, if I thought Spider-Man 3 was good, obviously I think No Way Home is good. But based on its own merits, I think that it is lacking in a few places. And if you're gonna go in blind, if you're not gonna watch any of the others, you're gonna skip right to Endgame, you're going to be lost. And I know that that's not the point. That's not what they're banking on you judging the film on, but that's what I'm judging it on. That's what this entire list is judging it on. And I think that it is a bit too reliant on that background information to be good. That's my opinion. Amazing Spider-Man 2, Captain America Civil War, Amazing Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man Far From Home, Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, Spider-Man 3, Spider-Man No Way Home. This is where I put Spider-Man Homecoming. I think that Homecoming is better than No Way Home. I mean, I already basically said that when I was reviewing No Way Home. But Spider-Man Homecoming is legitimately a fun film. It's very fun. It's very quirky. It doesn't have the trappings of a typical MCU film for me. It very much feels like its own thing. I love what John Watts did with his first Spider-Man film. And then I feel in the others he had a lot of Sony interference. But that's okay. It's fun. Vulture's a great character and a great villain. It's fun to see Spider-Man have this rise. Even though we've seen him 3 times have this rise to being Spider-Man, I think Homecoming does it best. And it's good. It's a good film. Amazing Spider-Man 2, Captain America Civil War, Amazing Spider-Man 2, Captain America Civil War, Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man Far From Home, Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, Spider-Man 3, Spider-Man No Way Home, Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man 1. Even though that's my favorite, I think that it's firmly in the number 2 spot, which, spoilers, that makes Spider-Man 2, in my opinion, the best Spider-Man film. Okay, I'll explain these two at the same time, I guess. Spider-Man 1 is fantastic. It's the perfect opener. It explains his origin story well. It has fucking Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe blows my mind with how good of an actor he is, especially in this role. He does such a good job with such a campy script. And I love that it's campy, and I love that he does a good job with a campy script. It's so good. It's so good. I love it. But I think that comparing the two, if I were to go in blind, if I were not to know anything about Spider-Man, never to read the comics, never do anything else, if I skipped right to Spider-Man 2, I would still be able to follow along. There's nothing like, oh, Peter, you remember when we fought the Vulture? You gotta remember that for this scene to be important. No. There's nothing like that. It's better done writing. It's better done overall performances. I think this is the movie where Tobey really leans into the role and does a good job, even though, some of the faces he throws out are a little weird. I'm not going to knock him for that. Alfred Molina, while he's not Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, Alfred Molina Doc Ock is still a fantastic portrayal. And this is the movie when you're still very understanding of MJ. In Spider-Man 3, she's just kind of there. It's weird. In Spider-Man 1, it's not that she's still good in Spider-Man 1. I use good very loosely for her because I don't think she does a good MJ. But it feels like Spider-Man 2 is the best balance for me for MJ. The other thing is, in Spider-Man 1, it feels like we're waiting a long time to see Spider-Man. It's a lot of origin stuff, which is needed in an origin story. Gee whiz, who would have thought of that? But Spider-Man 2, just from the get-go, here he is. Here's Spider-Man. We're doing Spider-Man right now. Let's go. This is a Spider-Man story. Sure, we're dealing with, this is his struggle as Spider-Man and Peter Parker. He's having a web block, as they say in No Way Home. But it's still a very, very good time. It's like Empire Strikes Back. Maybe I'm the only person who feels this way, but this is exactly how George Lucas made the original movies, the original Star Wars movies. You can jump in at any time, and you have this general understanding. Sure, there's like this long wall of text at the beginning. Even if you ignore that, you're not fucking stupid. You can pick up the pieces. You can understand. You don't need to know that, Luke got his hand cut off at the end of this film. You don't need to know that Ben died at the hands of Darth Vader. It's very cohesive. It's very conducive. It's very easy to understand. It's easy to context clues, to put context clues together and say, okay, I'm 5 minutes in, I know what's happening. Rebels are the good guys, Empire are the bad guys. They're clearly very evil and sinister and blah blah blah. I understand. And that's what's beautiful about Empire Strikes Back. That's what's beautiful about Spider-Man 2. That is my list. That's how I feel about the Spider-Man films based on their own merit. And that's kind of what I was trying to do for this video. Thank you for coming along with me. I'm not ready to do it for the Batman. I'm gonna lose my freaking mind having to watch a lot of that crap. But I'm gonna do it. And I'm definitely gonna space it out a little bit better. I kind of crammed Spider-Man into like the span of 2 days, which heavily burnt me out. Emotionally speaking, oh my god, that murdered me. So I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna make sure that there's more gap between the movies this time. But yeah, I hope you guys tune in for that. I hope I edit this in a timely fashion. Who knows? Who knows? You never know with me. Thank you. Y'all have a good day.